Meet with your reps one-on-one, get to know them, get to know what they do and how they do it and what they like, what they don't like, what they're trying to get out of their job. The vast majority of enablers used to be sellers. They've walked in those shoes. And so it's also about relating back to reps that you've been in their shoes, you understand their world. The biggest takeaway that I'd say is have the data, but also have the human side and just learn to balance the two in order to have success with your enablement initiatives.
Do we really need right now with AI advancing this much to have human trainers, or AI can actually take care of it?
I think it depends on a few things.
Hello, how's it going, Rosie?
It's good, Michael. How are you?
Can't complain. Winter's here. Things are good. Can't complain. I'm glad you're here. Good to have you. Today, just we want to talk about learning principles for successful enablement. It's all about revenue enablement, and I'm really fascinated with this idea because nobody actually talked about it. So we recorded like 100 episodes, nobody brought it up. So I think it's a unique perspective. But before we get started, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, what you're working on these days, and your story?
Yeah, of course. So I'm Rosi Young. I am the EMEA Enablement Lead here at Miro. I've worked here since February. I've been in enablement now for about 6 years. I've done stints at Highspot, Gartner, where I was also a rep. So bit of the sales knowledge as well and sales background. But funny story, and it's probably where this topic came from. I started my career as a secondary school teacher. So I'm a qualified teacher, worked in a high school here in the UK for a few years. And decided it probably wasn't for me. Other teachers out there who are listening will agree, I'm sure. But yeah, pivoted into business of all things, into sales, and then did fairly well as a seller. And I think they thought, you could teach, you can sell, why don't you teach selling? And so essentially that was where I got my start in enablement.
It's amazing. It's amazing. So switching from again sales and to enablement, um, how this experience been so far? Like, what are the things that you're doing actually differently compared to days you were selling?
I think it was almost a natural transition for me. I was already mentoring other sellers. When I went into enablement, I was already trying to understand what best practices were and apply them to myself and to other members of my team. So it felt like quite a natural transition. And honestly, part of me missed the light bulb moment that I had in teaching. And so I remember, because I taught, in the UK, 14 to 18-year-olds, so quite older children. But I used to love watching their light bulb moments when they got a concept and then they applied it and they were like, oh wow, this makes sense. And you could kind of see the brain cogs starting to work. And I think I missed that in sales, because you get glimmers of that sometimes when you're like educating clients and things, but it's not really the same. So I think that was the biggest transition, was almost like a calling back to what I started my professional journey doing. And so it's it was a nice blend of that. I think being in enablement also gives you quite a lot of perspective, when you're out when you're in the field, and it's your day to day, it's your bread and butter. You're having these client calls, you're doing this, you're doing that, you're updating CRMs, you are having manager one-on-ones, you're doing deal reviews, you're doing QBRs, you're doing all of these things. But enablement, you're not doing that. And so you have a little bit of perspective and objectivity to understand, oh, actually, that's not really working, but let's tweak and see how we can make it better. And I think I quite like that high level view of a business, because it really does touch all bases, and you get to really, I think, have a lot more impact at a wider perspective.
Makes sense. Look, I remember, when I was a kid, I hated school, like being really honest. And I was
Yeah.
like, all right, it's just mandatory, thing that I need to do. Sure, I just go to
Yeah.
school, during the weekend I can go have fun. And honestly, like I had the same experience getting into sales. Like I started really early in sales, and it was just a classroom environment, and we even sometimes like we're joking around and said, oh my god, you're back to back to, I don't know, kindergarten. And they were getting mad at us like, hey, did you do your training? I know things are changed again. We really again enablement grown to revenue enablement. We are more strategic, working with everyone in go to market. But I wanted to get your perspective on this because you're actually doing the job, and you've been a teacher as well, right? So um, tell me how you actually build a different experience for your audience, because again we're dealing with adults, and this is the topic of today's conversation. Adults again, they have different expectations when it comes to learning and enablement. I want to hear your perspective on it.
Yeah, it's a really interesting one. And honestly, part of me isn't surprised that it hasn't really been raised as a topic on your podcast yet, because I think it's something that enablers have so much pressure on them, and it's such an intense job, and there's so many fires to constantly put out. We've got our RKO coming up, and it's in like 4 months, and I'm already kind of sweating about it. I'm really stressed about it, and that's one thing that my team are organizing. So enablement, we're always constantly putting out fires, but we're also very often we're a small tiny team, and we're trying to enable a lot of sellers at the same time. So my current team, I think we're 4 or 5 people, and we're enabling like 400 to 500 people globally. And so, you know, I think when it comes to adult learning, a lot of sellers are used to, as you said, sitting in a classroom, having training put upon them. And the restraints of enablement is that very often we do have to do a one-to-many approach. But that being said, there are ways to tweak our enablement sessions to make them a lot more impactful and memorable, and with the knowledge that we're trying to retain information and help we're helping our reps use it essentially. But going back to adult learners being very, very different from child learners, yes, absolutely. I think child learners, my daughter's 5 months old, so she's learning the world around her as we speak. She she like freaked out earlier because like my partner ripped up a piece of paper, and she was like, oh my god. But, her brain is not, it's still being molded. And when we're at school and we're being kind of taught information, our brains are already they're digesting information, and they're kind of fresh out the packet. Humans are messy. We are not robots. We haven't got AI bots selling for us yet, and to be honest, I don't think we probably ever will. But adults are messy. Their brains are all over the place. They come with trauma, complexities, you know perceived ways of how the world works, and you're trying to balance all of that whilst enabling a lot of people at the same time, and trying to help them get knowledge in their brains that they're going to use to make themselves more successful. So it's a really tricky balance. But I think there are some ways in which you can use adult learning principles very easily to make that enablement stick, even if it is a one-to-many model, which I know that we're dealing with at the moment.
This is a very good point, and I want to ask actually a follow-up question on this.
Mhm. Yeah.
Look, there are ways again enablement can be really strategic and get, let's say, peer-to-peer, voices. Hey, you're my champion, Michael. You applied this, it worked out for you. Let's just communicate it with your team. But I want to talk about something more actually tactical, training. Pure training, because it still to me is important. But many people challenge the idea that we need human trainers. Like we are a company that offers like role play training, AI, one-on-one coaching. And I'm I'm thinking, do we really need people? Like, do we need enablement to really do this sort of like training when you talked about AI. I agree. We cannot replace, our sellers. Today I received a cold call and the AI bot. It was so weird. Hello, this is James. I was like, yeah, right, goodbye. And I'm with you, but we still need enablement. And big part of enablement is training. I
Mhm.
know, again, we're talking the strategic enablement, but focusing on training. Do we really need right now with AI advancing, this much to have human trainers, or AI can actually take care of it?
I think it depends on a few things. I think it depends on, firstly, what you're training. And I also think it depends on the modality and how you're training. So if it was a role play, then I'd say, yeah, like there are amazing, AI bots and AI platforms that can outsource and can help enable and up level conversations at a very, very core level. But if we're if we're enabling on very human skills like empathy or negotiation or objection handling at a really core level, then I think that there is still a need, at least in my opinion, for human trainers. I'd also say I have seen before, actually, I experienced it myself with a training in my last role, is that they created like an AI training, and I was sat on this on the thing, and it was just information at me. It wasn't really involving me, and
Mm.
so again, for very very short courses or short sessions, or if it's information that you just need someone to know and not really do anything with, then I'd say AI is probably okay. But for everything else, like, I think there is still a very big need for a human trainer, and a human trainer that understands how people learn and can apply things effectively.
Let's talk about actually learning. I have a different idea, but before I get into that, I want to hear some examples because it's for different purposes we need human trainers. Can you give some examples of what we actually still need humans to do in this sort of job?
Yeah, I think, well, when it comes to sales broader, I'd say, maybe very early lead generation, an element of that can be outsourced to an extent. I mean, you said earlier you got like a spam call and it was an AI bot, and you can tell, it's very like uncanny valley. You can tell when someone's not human. And I'm sure that that's fine for, very, very early on in the sales cycle. But then when it actually comes to speaking to someone that is human, a customer that does require a little bit more from a company, then I think there's definitely a need for a seller there. Um, but I think in terms of examples of ways in which humans are needed, if I think about a typical strategic or enterprise deal, they are very very long sales cycles. Normally they're very very complex, multiple people in those deals, multiple different needs. I just don't think that, two things. Firstly, I don't think that an AI bot will be able to kind of differentiate that. They may be able to, I don't know. But secondly, if I was a customer and I was spending, 6, 7 figures on a solution, I'd expect to talk to a human and not a robot. So I think, there's also an element of, let's kind of put ourselves as humans across here, and show that we actually care about our customers. We're not going to just throw a robot at them. And so I think there's an element of that, as well as, can they do a good job? It's like, can the seller do a good job, but also can they relate to another human being, which hopefully the majority of people will hopefully be able to do, especially when we hire them.
I really like that idea. So the part that I said, look, I'm going to disagree with you because I have a real life example. So years back when we first launched this, let's say, AI coaching, I think I have a video on YouTube and I'm role playing and I'm getting coaching session with AI. It's so horrible. And to your point, it just like sounds so weird. It's like, all right, Michael, are you ready for? But things are changed. Like LLMs got so powerful, and we are all again uh, powering our platform through all these models. The conversations are extremely natural. Like to give you an example, we have this client, they're selling fences, and I was just demoing the solution, I think, to a bunch of new reps. I said, "All right, let's just understand a little bit more about your wife's perspective." And AI turned back and said, and we didn't actually prompt such a thing. Like, yes, we have general prompting and all that. Said, "Dude, don't make it complicated. I'm just buying a fence. Can we get the job done or what?" And I was like, this is interesting. Like even it's more conversational. So
Yeah.
coaching, the same thing. Look, we we have context across the board, like all
Mhm.
these conversations, all the decision makers, they're all involved in what I believe is, like, right now you can get very good coaching with AI because it has context and it can relate to you as an individual. But the part that you're, to me, absolutely on point is that we want to build a genuine connection. And
Mm.
we still know as sellers, when we are sitting in front of our laptop and talking to I can still just sit like this or just like say whatever. Or so it doesn't have, maybe we don't take it as seriously as a human coach in front of us, even because of respect, like even
Yeah,
that element alone. And I think that plays a big role. And whenever we get to companies and say, "Hey, I'm going to outsource my one-on-ones or human training or group training sessions," I'm like, "You're making a mistake. You're going to fail
yeah,
because this could help in individual level training scenarios when you want to just, let's say, role play, get quick feedback, be very tactical. Okay, give me more phrasing, I want to change it.
yeah,
But
yeah.
being in the situation with another human being and sharing thoughts and ideas, it still feels different. And I'm 100% with you. That's a great point. Do you believe your reps burn leads practicing on client calls? When it comes to giving them one-on-one coaching sessions, you just don't have the bandwidth, so you get rid of them altogether? Or maybe you notice that your team spends a lot of time on non-revenue tasks like taking notes, updating CRM, or drafting emails. These are the exact challenges we solve for other revenue leaders like yourself. With Sell Me the Spend AI Coach, you can offer your reps role-play sessions at scale while automating one-on-one coaching sessions based on your best practices and methodology. Also, AI will take care of all their non-revenue tasks, like note-taking, CRM updates, draft the email for them, so they can focus on constant improvement while you're focusing on one thing and one thing only: revenue growth. If you're interested in learning more about the clients we are working with or use cases that might be beneficial to you, check us out at sellmethespend.ai. Now, can you tell us about the classroom situation? I'm going to go back again to training because I'm really
Yeah,
curious. Like, how do you apply this adult learning, principles? Many of our sellers are seasoned. Like they've been around the block, and you know how it goes with salespeople. You're going to sell it yourself. Look, I've been selling. I'm in the front line. I'm doing this right now. I need to go and if I'm an SDR, do my dials, or I take more calls basically. Work on my deals. If you're talking enterprise, I'm gonna go work on my deals.
yeah.
How do you get them to pay attention even for a short span of time? Because I'm really curious. I want to apply it to my own business. So
Yeah, no,
go for it.
of course. Yeah, I mean, the whole attention span, and I mean, we all know that attention spans are just going down generally because of things like TikTok, and I'm guilty of that. I'm 37 and I'm still obsessed with TikTok, like it's embarrassing. So I'm going to go back to there's a theory. There's an old adult learning theorist. I think he came up with this concept in the 70s. It's all around like andragogy and all around like the concept of adult learning and how adults actually learn, whether or not that's a classroom, whether or not that's one-on-one, whatever that might be. And there's a few principles of this. So the first one that I want to talk through is just it's like self-directed learning. So they get a lot more out of a session, more out of an enablement touch point if it's directed, if they're actually interested in leveling up themselves. So if they see a need in themselves to do it, they'll do it. I mean, a good example of this, it's not directly related to enablement, but I've been attempting to learn Spanish on Duolingo for like genuinely 4 years. It's embarrassing at this point, but that is self-directed learning. It wasn't something that was forced upon me. It was something that I was like, oh, you know what? I would like to get better at this, and so I'm actively, I'm bringing autonomy in how I want to learn and what I want to learn. So I think there's a there's a need for autonomy with adults. I do understand that a lot of the time enablement sessions, they're prescriptive. They're kind of shown, adults or reps need to kind of do something because of a data point and everything. But I think there is an element of you can bring that kind of self-directed learning into it, whether or not that's a kind of a choose your own adventure touch point. It's maybe using data to show why something's important and the impact that it's going to have on the set on the rep. There are all kinds of different things. So trying when you can to make it a lot more autonomous and a lot more of a choice to an adult, that usually resonates a lot more. I also think I like the fact that you brought up experienced sellers, very very tenured reps who have done this for years. They probably come to these trainings, they sit in the back, they twiddle their thumbs, they check Slack, they text their partner, whatever, and they're probably thinking, I don't want to be here.
Mhm.
If they have been in the field for a long period of time, they're experienced, they're probably respected, they've done well to be in the field for that long, bring them in, get them to feed into either the session ask them how, what they would like to get out of it. Ask for them, ask for their opinion. Ask them to feature as a guest speaker, because you know what, they've had their own experiences, and they can probably advise less tenured reps on what to do and what not to do. So, it's it's such a basic psychological principle, but people love talking about themselves and their worlds.
Mhm.
So bring them in. If you're seeing disengagement, ask them why that is, and ask, for their feedback. Get them to kind of play a part in it, because again, that increases a sense of ownership as well. I think the third thing that I'll say, and the third principle that I'll talk through, is around, that respect piece, and I know that you mentioned that you hated school when you were younger. I don't think you're alone in that. I'll be honest. But I think, when we're talking to adults, when we're engaging with adults, they want to be partners in their learning journey. They don't want to be pupils. They don't want to have an information dump on them, because A, it's boring. B, it reminds them of their classroom, and they hate it. Most of them hated school. And they want to be respected as peers, as colleagues, and they want to be part of it. So I think respecting them, bringing in their experiences, as I mentioned before, but also asking them, in their opinion, what would they like to upskill in. If they say nothing, they're liars, by the way. I've had that before. I'm like, you may say that, but actually they're just saying this. But I think, that's a really key point, and something that I really want to drive home. Don't do information dumping. Get them involved. Ask for their opinions, and it's such a basic thing to do. But talk to them one-on-one. Meet with your reps one-on-one. Get to know them, get to know what they do and how they do it, and what they like, what they don't like, what they're trying to get out of their job. um, it's something that I'm really, really keen to do whenever I start a new job, or I start a new remit, or I'm asked to enable a new group of sellers. Is, can I meet with them one-on-one? Can I meet with even a handful of them, so that I get to know them on a personal level, and I'm not just seen as teacher. I actually get to know them, and work with them as partners rather than my pupils.
Simple, but very, very powerful.
Yeah.
And hard to practice because we are not patient. We get
No.
people, one-on-ones. I want to hear your opinion. Can I share my feedback with you?
Yeah.
And we turn to experts because
Yeah.
typically it's hard for people to really get even their thoughts together. Maybe at the beginning we hear something we don't want to hear, so we go with an agenda. So instead of really and genuinely understanding, our team as again another adult in front of us, we have again, I sometimes do it. I'm going to say it's very, very difficult to run, good coaching sessions where you genuinely, try to understand what's going on in their world. Maybe they have a perspective, maybe even they're wrong. Maybe even they're wrong, and that's fine. But just, putting the judgment aside and putting the opinion aside. Maybe it's not even judgment, because typically people want to help, right? We get in like, I know what's going on, look at their numbers, I know what to tell them, they're gonna be great. And then you realize it didn't work. They go back to the same behavior. So this is really powerful. Ask for their opinion because it opens another, conversation. It's like discovery, right?
Ask for their opinion. Again, going back to the sense of ownership, they feel like you're a peer. They can talk to you. They can also give you some really candid feedback. And I've had some pretty candid feedback from some of my reps. They were like, Rosie, that session was awful. And I was like, thank you. Thank you for
Oh.
being so blunt. Um, what I would also say is that, I think this is also a really good point for a lot of enablement professionals. They come from sales. The
Yeah.
vast majority of enablers used to be sellers.
Mhm.
They've walked in those shoes. And so it's also about relating back to reps that you've been in their shoes, you understand their world.
Mhm.
I always try and weave in a story, even if it's self-deprecating, about times where I sold and it was a hot mess, or times where I sold and the client just laughed in my face, or whatever it was, so that they understand that I've been there. I understand their world, and you know I'm not going to ever put something in front of them that I wouldn't have done myself as a rep. And so trying to communicate that with them, I think, it's such a tiny switch to make, but I think it really does open up the trust to between enablement and sales, and that actually helps sellers see you as a partner rather than someone that's just going to give them training.
Hmm. This is a really, really good point. I was thinking while you were saying, because you were talking about something really interesting, and it reminded me of a movie
Okay.
that it was this coach, and there are a bunch of bad kids. They're talented, but they didn't. I think it was a basketball coach or so. I don't remember, the context exactly. But it was like they were a bunch of athletes, and they were kind of like gang members. They didn't want to listen even to what the coach is saying. He turned the table at the end, like they were, becoming champions and all that stuff. So I was just, thinking about this. I was like, sometimes, like even when I onboard, some teams, to be honest, like leaders come in, we want this. This is going to change everything. We build business cases, enablement comes in. Yes, this is it. Then you meet with the team. Sometimes you see like people are completely disengaged. It never been communicated internally. And look, in theory, you can remind your clients about all that stuff. Go, get one of your high performing reps. Let's co-build with them. Get some up and comers. Let's just train them first. You do all the steps, sure,
Hmm.
but because they never actually communicate, this is what I think, and maybe I'm off base, I don't know. As of why even we need this, so everybody thinks that maybe it's another Big Brother. Because that was the initial thought for all of us when Gong was introduced years back. It was like, oh my god, they're gonna record my car. Are you serious, dude? I feel uncomfortable already. So
Yeah, yeah.
it's the same. What's the difference? Like even tools like this could be, yes, I still gonna practice. You're gonna see, what I'm doing and all that stuff. How should we build that trust? Because I think it's beyond just a tool. It could be for a program. I think enablement is positioned, by the way, very nicely because you're not the CRO, you're not the CEO, and people are like, okay, I can trust maybe this one. But how do you get that trust? How do you build that trust, with people?
Oh, it's a good question. I will say, like, I'm enablement first and therapist second in most of the orgs that I'm in. But I think the trust thing is really interesting, and I see this probably increasing in the world of AI. And it goes back to what we were saying before about humans trusting humans, and and whatever. I think how to increase trust. I think it goes back to a few things. Firstly, again, having one-on-ones with all of your stakeholders, and I'm deliberately using the word stakeholders because I truly believe, like, once you've been in sales, like, you're pretty much always in sales, and enablement is no different. I'm selling my enablement to my sales leaders, to my sales reps, to product marketing, to product, to whoever it is. I'm selling what I'm doing, and hoping that it's a value to them, so that they'll buy more from me. um, so the trust piece needs to continuously be there through one-on-ones, through open conversation, open communication, bringing things like data to the forefront, so that you're not just going in with opinions and fiction. It's based on fact. I think also bringing in that empathy piece, that I talked about briefly earlier. Having having an understanding of that person and where they're at in their journey, and what it is that they're trying to get out of this. And I remember when I was in sales learning and development at Gartner, one of the exercises that we gave to new hires was, 5 years time, like, what do you want to get out of this? And I'll never forget, there was this rep that was like, I want a yacht. And I was like, cool, love it. But you know what? I every single touch point that I had with him since then, like, I was like, honestly, like, tell me, how's, have you been to look at any yachts recently? Like, how far along on your goal are you? And so, treating them like human beings, having that one-on-one touch point, remembering small things about them. Goes back to active listening, which we obviously do as sellers, but you need to do it on a rep basis and a leader basis. So that in a way builds trust, because you're actually getting to know someone and know how they work, and know what they want to get out of you, as much as you want to try and continue working with them.
Again, another powerful one. I have to give it to you. Simple, but honestly, like this is really very powerful because I don't remember last time I heard someone actually applying this. Hey, this is the training session. This is a rule for one-on-one with your managers or whatever, whatnot. And if you ask those managers, like even for their direct report,
Hmm.
honestly, many organizations, at least I work with, they have no idea why people are actually sitting. They need a job. That's an easy surface level. They need a job. They're in sales. They should be happy. It's a rocket ship. Be part of it.
Yeah.
But maybe, I don't know, maybe money motivated. Someone else is, a very helpful person. Someone is a learner. So we all have different reasons beyond money. Of course, we all need money to live. But just simply working on it as a training session, I think that would be extremely valuable. And you can still partner with your high performers. Said, look, you already arrived. You're making more than anyone else. What do you do with your money? And what did you have in mind? Let's say 5 years ago, if I would
Yeah.
ask this question to you, that could be even interesting story. That hey, I had this thought, I got this, and how sales actually helped me and why it matters. I think people maybe trust their peers a little bit more than their bosses.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You know, going back to the trust piece and actually communicating and connecting with your reps one on one, it also goes back to, even just learning small things about a rep. Like, it's such a basic thing, and it goes back to being just like simple actions. But if you find out something about one of your reps, and it's, I don't know, they really like, I don't know, playing the trumpet or whatever. I don't know. I just came up with that example. Um, you know, making a tiny reference to that when you next meet with them, just showing that you
Hmm.
know them. And again, we enable our sellers to do this with customers, but yet we don't do it ourselves when we're enabling a wider group. So it just goes back to show me you know me. Really try and understand your reps on both a professional and a personal level, whether that's trumpets or yachts, or I'm just trying to. I've had all kinds of like people tell me what they want to do with their lives and
Yeah.
their money over the years, but it's just about that connecting piece. None of this is rocket science, but it goes back to just helping sellers improve their lives through what they're doing, but also upskilling themselves and having fun with it. So really, really basic things that we should be doing.
I think we should go back to basics. That's the answer. Like we complicated, over engineered everything. No.
Oh my God, every session that I do, I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, what are we doing? Why are we doing it? How can we do it? And then what's in it for the reps? I mean, it's such a basic framework. It was taught to me at Gartner, and I'm like, it doesn't need to be any more complicated than that. And honestly, if it is more complicated than that, they'll turn off. So keep it simple always.
I had a CRO on the show the other day, and he said something interesting. It's like, hey, whenever I do interviews, I ask the CEO, I'm going to be the CRO. This is a must have for me. Keep it at the end, but I know I got the yes. So this is a must have. Salespeople are a different breed. I want to have a freedom to treat them a little differently. Sometimes maybe I do even offsite with them alone purposefully. Do I have this chance? And then when we stop recording, I'm gonna do this more often actually while recording. I think these conversations are better, after we're done. I said, look, dude, you're the CRO. Would you accept the same thing from an enablement folks? If they come and say, you know what? I'm gonna be the one who's molding these people and helping you change their behavior. Would you leave me alone? Not giving you report about training completion or all the
Yeah.
methodology trainings, I don't know, certification, because you, at the end of the day, you want to grow your numbers. Like all those things we were talking about, amazing. You want to tie, whatever I do to your revenue to say, okay, it makes sense to keep this person or promote them or give them more budget. Would you leave me alone for 5 6 months? You have a goal, yeah, and let me just understand who I'm working with. Like this is something that I knew, like I started practicing with our clients. Sometimes when I see resistance, I said, you want a result, right? I want to be beyond a tool. Would you let me get my hands dirty with your managers, with your reps, and give you a reality check? Like this is the stage one, because we have no idea who we are working with. You're buying a tool and said, "Hey, I bought it. You have to use it." They won't use it. You put your
Mhm.
money in the garbage can. Give me, give me this chance just to get to know your people and give
Yeah.
you a reality check and said, "Hey, maybe these folks are not even aligned with what you're trying to do."
Hmm.
And the same thing. Would you say enablement, got enough opportunity to go wild, like that example, like a CRO, do their job the way they want, or we are always pressured and under control just to prove our, worth?
Good question. I so definitely the proving our worth. That's definitely changed, and honestly, thank God it's changed because we are seeing enablement prove itself further and further as a revenue a revenue retainer and an implementer of key metrics, which super important, obviously. So to kind of just hone in on the point and the value of enablement, I think I think what we do need to do in terms of enablement generally is, we would like to, I'm speaking on behalf of my people, we would like to be able to, influence and properly get our hands dirty and roll up our sleeves. But I think very often we are not able to because we are constantly putting out fires and small asks
Hmm.
constantly. So I think there's definitely a desire to elevate the function, elevate ourselves, and really prove that we can, influence metrics for the better, substantially better. Um, I think in order to do that, we need to get better at pushing back, and we need to get better at being more strategic. Um, which is hard because I think enablers at our core, like we're all people pleasers. We're all recovering people pleasers, and we want to help and we want to enable, we want to support, but we can't do that and also be a strategic business partner to a company or an organization. We can't do both. And so I think it's about being smart with the amount of asks that we take on and the type of asks that we take on, so that we are able to still be that business partner and have that, people pleasing element.
Again, you made me think about something. Like, I sometimes do this. I sometimes sound very commanding, and I don't like that. And
No, you're
work
fine.
in progress. And I'm talking about like me dealing with my team. So sometimes, I come and get, guys, we have her on fire. This needs to be done. Please jump on it. And
Yeah.
people are like, maybe he knows. And it's sometimes, again, there is no agenda, no intention. And from their end too, they
Mm-hmm.
come and say, look, the guy needs help. He is under pressure. We have delivery. We have important clients. We got to jump right in.
Mm,
I only had one moment. Like, it's so interesting. And I hope other guys do this. Someone sent me a message and said, dude, I think this is gonna hurt you. I was like, what do you mean? So I guess I have a chat. So this is gonna hurt you because you keep stressing over the things. I just did a breakdown as of
mm,
why everything is fine. If you wanted to have a conversation about it, like, I laughed at first. I was like, what the hell? I was just, all right, let's have a talk. Like, I think we are dealing with humans, even our leaders, regardless of where they are in their journey. If we give them reality check about something that nobody actually tells them, it's just like, hey, you are right, okay, you have a lot of things, your plate is full, this is what I just noticed, happy to do it, happy to do it. And I just wanted to say, like, these are the areas you might want to consider. If you want to chat about it, I'm happy to share my 2 cents. You might get ignored, I get it, but if you have a good leader, I doubt people drop ideas and opinion. So maybe just being a little bit more vocal could help too. I know it's a scary market right now, with, like, many people, got laid off. But at the end of the day, do we want to work for leaders that are not human? So.
like we're all human, we're all messy, as I said before, but I think that's the beauty of it. What I will say with people who push back, or enablers that do want to be more strategically minded is, yes, you can say we should probably be doing this, but have data to back it up. I mean, it goes without saying, I know, but like, it's the one way to resonate is by using data. And I once had a sales leader that came to me, and he was like, we haven't really done multi-threading in a while. Like, we haven't really like looked at that in a while. And I was like, cool, like, happy to do something, but is there a problem with it? Like, have you looked at the data? What is the data saying? Have we got an
Mhm.
issue with multi-threading? Are we only having one stakeholder in deals? And then he looked at the data and he was like, no, actually, we got like average 3 to 4. And I was like, doesn't look like there's a problem. So let's look at another thing that does probably require putting out in terms of a fire. So I think, we we of course want to get our opinion across. Again, we're human. We want to make sure that we're heard. But I think in order to be able to push back in a nice way, in a more strategic way, obviously come with data points. Is there truly a problem? And is one training going to fix multi-threading? Probably not. Because again, we're not dealing with robots.
Look, I'm really enjoying this episode. You know what? You keep, I don't know, putting some seeds in my head. So you were saying this, and I was like, you know what? Rosie said I like enablement a little bit more than sales because I get the light bulb. But
Mhm.
honestly, I love sales because while you were saying this, I was like, look, I gave an example about a leader who is a little bit more, I don't know, just the way, I am. And that type of message resonated with me. But for a leader that you were talking about, maybe they're more again data driven. Maybe they want to see the numbers first, then we can get into chit chat. But let me show you, why, maybe you're looking at it a little bit differently. And it's just about knowing your audience. Like we are selling in every seat, in every day, in every stage of whatever the hell we are doing. We are selling, and selling to me is just
Yeah.
understanding who we are dealing with, and
Hmm.
then we can get into it. Anyways, we are almost about time.
No worries.
If you wanted to share one thing to the world, it could be for enablers, it could be for revenue leaders, it could be for anyone.
Hmm.
Something relevant to the topic of this conversation, what would that be?
So I think the thing that I would convey is, you know, obviously we want to be data first, and it's so important. It's crucial the way we're our industries and the role of a seller is at the moment. We need to be data driven. We need to understand the metrics, but we cannot ignore the humans that we are supporting as well. We can't ignore the fact that, just being a little bit strategic and a little bit thoughtful about how our reps consume information, apply that knowledge, even being a little bit aware of how that happens, it can make such an impact on the bottom line and long term bottom line as well, long term metrics. And so I think it's just we need to balance the two, which is it's easier said than done. But I think that's the biggest takeaway that I'd say is, have the data but also have the human side, and just learn to balance the two in order to be, to have success with your enablement initiatives.
Really love this. And I'm going to end it with this. My previous guest, Kelly Wright, she used to be the president at Gong. And we had a different conversation. I don't know, this last episode's, I'm getting a little bit the different side of things rather than being super tactical. I'm loving it. And she said, look, this is what I'm thinking, and nobody's thinking about it. Everybody keeps killing themselves about efficiency, getting more AI tools, and be more data driven. And before we were talking about this stuff too, but right now, again, everybody's super hyped. Said nobody actually realizes that we talk about differentiation, right? So if we all have the same data, same playbooks, same processes, everything is almost perfect the same. And you can automate as much as you want. And you can rely on those automations. And everybody could, basically do the same. The only thing that differentiate you and your organization is just your people. And how you actually mold those people apart from the competition through those conversations, as long as we are around as sellers, right? So I think what you're saying is the same. We need to go back to basic. Like sales is a yes performance based career, and it's all about the performer and the bar in front of them. Let's just actually make them more even human, get them even closer to understanding people. I'm trying to buy a tool, by the way, guys. If you want to sell me, dialer, give me a call. Oh my god, it's such a weird experience because I know, look, you're selling to sell you. I'm getting qualified or not. I'm like, look, dude, this is what I want. Just tell me, like, honestly, why you guys? I want to see what sort of support I'm getting from you later.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And it's just all scripted. But anyways, another topic for another day. Rosie, I really like this conversation. I appreciate you joining. If someone wants to reach out to you, can they, and how?
They can reach out to me on LinkedIn. My name is spelt Rosi. Don't ask. It's spelt weirdly. And my surname is Young. So feel free to reach out, Rosi Young. I work at Miro. So if you find me via that, that's also fine. But yeah, more than happy to answer any messages that you have.
Amazing. All right, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. If you didn't, I did. So until next time, bye for now.